All right. Good evening, everyone. So we wanted to start. I know most of the people on the call today, but just wanted to give an opportunity to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So we're going to start with a really quick activity, and then we can dive into some of the content around the early childhood agenda and go from there. So to start, what we would love to have everyone do is to rename yourself in Zoom. So I'll do a quick little demonstration right now on mine. So to rename yourself, you just click on the three dots that's by the picture of your face or where your name is on the screen, and then you click rename. And then I'm going to ask everyone to rename themselves according to this chart here. So I'm changing mine to 3-Marissa Fear. So in my role, I interact with children and families every day, number 1. If you're a number 2, in my role, I interact with children and families occasionally. Or number 3, in my role, I do not regularly interact with children and families, but I do have a vested interest. So take just one moment to rename yourself, and then we will get started. I'm seeing we have a lot of 1s on the call, which is very exciting. All right. So hello, everyone. I'm Marissa Fear. I'm the Associate Director of Research and Policy at Strategies for Children. And Strategies is the organization that's hosting the Early Childhood Agenda. So for those that are not familiar with the Early Childhood Agenda, I wanted to give just a quick level setting overview so that we're all on the same page, and then we can jump into the first activity. So the Early Childhood Agenda seeks to connect and to align the many programs, services, information, research, everything that's happening in early childhood, we know is interconnected, and the policies and the solutions need to be interconnected as well. So what we are doing this year is bringing together everyone and anyone who's working with young children and families, and coming together to elevate, to prioritize our collective priorities for early childhood. So to think about, what do we want to see accomplished over the next 2 years the most, and what are the things that we can realistically accomplish within that time. So at the beginning of this process, we're really going through some of those like grounding decisions that we need to make. So thinking about what the collective values are of the early childhood agenda, thinking about a vision statement. So what is the early childhood system that we all want to see ultimately? What are we working towards? And then most importantly, really thinking about how are we going to sort of decide what to prioritize or what to elevate as part of the agenda. So what we've done is drafted a series of questions that we're really asking participants to take a look at and to consider as you're providing feedback or as you're engaging throughout this process, so that we're all making decisions according to the same sort of set of rules, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and just show that really quickly. Whoops. All right, so what we did is we presented a first draft, and then we've solicited some input from 9:30 callers, from the Early Childhood Agenda work group meeting, and now from you all. This is still a work in progress, so if you have any comments, please add them to the chat so that we can incorporate them into the next draft of this language. But for the purposes of today, we'll use sort of these as guiding principles or guidelines for setting the agenda. So to start, is this agenda item designed to raise awareness or to change behavior? Who will this agenda item benefit? The child, the family, or early childhood professionals? Is this something that's actionable within our 2-year timeline? How large of an impact will this have on children and families? What is this agenda item's direct relevance to early childhood? So because we've sort of opened up the floodgates and we're trying to think holistically about children and families' experiences in the first 8 years of life, really wanting to think holistically and make those connections, but also focus in on what is directly related to early childhood and to children. Are we prepared to move this work forward? So is this something that, we're sort of in the initial stages of identifying what the problem is, and we need to start to think about what a solution is to that problem? Or is this something where we know what the problem is, we've talked about the solutions, there's consensus around what the solution should be, and we're prepared to move that forward now after the agenda setting process this fall? Is there political will around this? And if not, how can we build the political will necessary to move this forward? So knowing that partnership with state government, federal government, our state legislature is an essential component of the agenda's success is their political will around the agenda item. And then finally, has this been tried before? And if so, what can we learn from previous attempts? And what levers are different this time? So really trying to pull in, we know there aren't a lot of new ideas in the early childhood field. So pulling in the research, the work that's already happened, examples of things that have happened in the past that have worked well or that haven't worked well, and thinking about what we can change or what we can adapt. So keeping all of those in mind, I wanted to pause for a minute and just see if there are any questions about the agenda itself, and then we can jump into the first activity. I'm going to stop sharing screen just so we can see each other and then pause. So feel free to come off mute and we can just talk live. It's a pretty small group, so happy to do that. All right, and I'm seeing we have a couple people that may have joined after I gave my announcement too, but if you could try and rename yourself so that we can just know sort of where you sit within the early childhood system. So if you are a number 1, it's someone who works with children and families every day or is a caregiver for a young child. A number 2 is someone who works with children and families occasionally. And number 3 is if you don't work with children and families regularly, but you have a vested interest in this process. Leah, do you have anything?
I do. I'm from Agawam, and recently, within the last 5 years or so, it's become very populated, and almost all of our family child cares and center bases are full with wait lists. So it's disheartening because by the time you do have an opening, you can't help those families that need it right now. How can we fix that?
Yeah, that's a great point. So what we're going to be doing throughout this agenda setting process is this meeting and this week, we're going to start with the problems and then we're going to move towards solutions. So what we really wanted to do is to bring everyone together and to say, what are the biggest challenges that you all have seen in your work? And we'll go through it based on the 5 buckets that I can share in the slides in a minute, the 5 different working groups that we've sort of categorized the work by. And then after the group has reached some consensus and we've seen them elevate what those challenges are, then we're going to move into the solution space. So to your point, Leah, one of those challenges is clearly that like the demand for early education and childcare services exceeds the supply. There's just not enough providers out there for the children that need the services. So what we'll hope to see through this process is that should make it onto the list and hopefully in the financially secure families section, because I think that the access part really lines well there. To see that problem's identified, then to narrow in on that. So like, what's the problem within access? Are we seeing that there are, well, as a perfect example, is it that we need more programs, or is it that the classrooms and center-based programs and that family childcare don't have capacity to serve the children? So like we know in center-based programs, as an example, so many classrooms are closed right now just because they can't find staff. So really narrowing in on what the specific challenge is around access, and then switching it to the solution. So having sort of the last stage of this process be what's the solution to that problem, and then let's see that elevated so that we can sort of collectively support that. That's a great question. It's a perfect example too, I think, of how we hope that this will work.
I had a question just about how the creation of the agenda will work, because I, as probably many of us do, because we're on this call, am working with children during the meeting time. So I was just wondering, like, if it is possible for me to contribute, or how that would be for people who are working with children during the day.
Yes, that is a great question. So yes, 100% possible and highly encouraged. We need your input. I think we need everyone on this call's input the most, because most of you on this call are working with children and families every day. And we know that when you're closest to the work, you will be able to identify those problems and solutions better than those of us that are further removed from it. So there's a couple different things. The working groups are really meant to be just one point of connection, sort of like how this 9:30 call at night space is supposed to be one point of connection. And if you are not able to attend during those time slots, the activities and then even the space. So thinking about this 9:30 call where we can come together and we can do this activity together and talk through it. That's going to happen throughout the entire fall. So this like structure will continue where every week we'll have, every other week we'll have a working group meeting, and then we'll have an accompanying 9:30 call at night meeting where we can host that in the evenings and invite people to come and join that. If even coming to this ends up being too much where it's just like, I don't have half an hour in my day, I'm exhausted, I've been working with kids all day long, I want to go home. We're also making the activities, the instructions, all of that's going to be online, both on our website and in Basecamp, which I'll share the link to for all of you. And so you'll be able to post on message boards, see all the documents that are being collected, provide feedback on activities, sort of engage virtually as if it was like an online course, if that makes sense. So we're trying to make it fully online so that you don't have to come to meetings. If you want to for the connection piece, you can, but it'll be fully online. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. That's
Yeah,
great.
no problem. The other thing I just wanted to highlight too is because we're trying to think about this holistically and really consider early childhood and all of the services and programs. So it's educators, but it's also like home visitors or people who are working in early intervention or social workers, the many sort of early childhood professionals or people that are working with young kids that we want to pull into this conversation. So the other part of this is that we're really relying on our partners who may have more connections to professionals in other spaces that isn't early education and childcare, to really connect with them, to host some of these conversations similar to the 9:30 call at night, and to pass along the information as well. So if you all have any other suggestions about how to do that or ways that we can make some of those connections, even if it's just like posting on Facebook groups or sharing it with the people that you're connected to, please feel free to do that and let me know. All right.
I just have, and somehow I may have just missed it and trying to sort of participate, but I kept trying to sign up for this evening call or to like see more information about it, but I kept being brought to the 9:30 call, like the morning one. So I think being a little bit more clear how I could sign up for the evening one. Luckily, I received an email this evening that was like, oh, it's at 8. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
But I think that would be helpful. And I actually am a CFCE program, and I'd be more than happy to share it with we have a state Facebook group, private group that I'll share the information on.
Thank you. Is it Jillian?
Gillian, yep.
Gillian, okay, Gillian, thank you. That would be super helpful. And that's exactly the type of sort of engagement and participation that we're hoping for. So that's, I think, a great model for others as well too. All right. And then yes, around the 9:30 call, what we've done is we're basically using the exact same Zoom that we've created for the morning versions, which is why it's a little wonky in terms of the sign up. So I think we can change the instructions. So you sort of should be signing up for the 9:30 call, if that makes sense. And then you'll receive the information about the nighttime slot as well. And then we're sending it in the early childhood agenda group as well, just for good measure. All right.
Can I just ask, I was going to share this on the page that Alyssa and I administrate. I just wasn't sure if you wanted to open it to almost 700 providers.
So I would say I'm gonna send you something, Gina, that's like a little blurb that explains what this is with all the sign up information.
Yep.
Only reason being, I want to make sure that people are getting into the email list so that they're getting all of the information in the future and not just like the one Zoom link or the one little kind of one-off piece. But yes, I would love to we're opening it up to everyone and anyone. So the full 700 list works for me.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to spend the next 15 minutes just diving into this activity. And this is really meant to be sort of a preview of the activity. Even in all the different working groups, we got through about a third of it. So it's the beginning of the process. What we're expecting now is that we're going to send out some follow-up communication to everyone who has signed up to participate in the agenda process, and we'll encourage them to continue to engage over the next, I think it's actually a full week until our next meeting. So, or sorry, full 2 weeks until our next meeting. So over the next 2 weeks to continue to engage, to continue to provide feedback, and to really at this stage, we're just trying to get as many responses out there as we possibly can, and then we can think about prioritizing and sort of elevating later on in the week. So just as an overview, the 5 working groups that we've sort of bucketed this work out by is financially secure families, high quality experiences, a thriving early childhood workforce, system infrastructure and local partnerships, and then healthy beginnings. And would everyone mind throwing into the chat if you're interested in 1, 2, 5? So if you're interested in 1, just list out which group you're most interested in. If you're interested in all 5 of them, feel free to say just you're interested in all 5 of them. Or if you're interested in more than 1, feel free to say that as well. I just wanted to tailor the activity slightly. If there's sort of consensus that you all are interested in 1 or 2 groups, I'll focus in on those ones. And if not, I'll just do an overview of all of them.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Can you just do a quick overview for?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, same.
So-
I'm not really sure like what they entail.
Yes, I can definitely do that. Here, let me pull up this slide deck really quickly. So essentially, what we've done is we've bucketed out this work so that we can focus in the problems and the solutions on certain areas, if that makes sense. So within early childhood, we know that some of these problems are going to cut across all of them. Like as an example, when we were talking about the workforce, that one for sure cuts across multiple of these different groups. And there will be a process where we eventually sort of align and we figure out that that they make sense together. All right, here's this slide deck. I think might be a little more helpful with what the working groups are about. All righty. So this is just an example, and this is actually sort of the step in the process that we're in now, is deciding what we're going to be talking about during these different, with each of these different categories. So we're really at sort of the beginning of this process. We haven't identified what we want to talk about yet. And I guess that's my first point. So if you hear the phrase financially secure families, what comes to your mind? You know, that's sort of the step that we're at now. We did this on the 9:30 call, and these were some of the responses that we got. So when people heard financially secure families, they thought about energy security, thinking about job training and placement for families, credit counseling and building, the effects of poverty, affordable housing, tax credits for parents, the future of work in Massachusetts, thinking about paid family medical leave, for sure in terms of the childcare world, thinking about like the reimbursement rate, family affordability, so like the parent fees that parents have to pay. And then I think another big one was, the employer, sort of like employer best practices and incentives around family friendly policies. So just a few examples of like the types of topics that we're expecting will come up in each of these groups. But again, it's really open to everyone. So for whoever's participating, if they think like this is really something that belongs here, we want it to go on the list and we want to include it. High quality experiences. So we've talked a lot about basically like there's no wrong door. So no matter where a child is, that they're having a high quality experience. If they're in an early education and care license program, if they're at home, if they're in sort of family friend and neighbor care, which isn't licensed necessarily, but that we're thinking about parenting supports, that we're thinking about coaching, that we're thinking about early intervention and home visiting and what quality looks like in those spaces. Really just thinking about making sure that whatever we are providing in terms of policies or in terms of programs and services is something that's of a high quality. In terms of the workforce, many things. So really thinking about career advancement opportunities, professional development, compensation, apprenticeship models, recruitment and retention. So basically just making sure that whoever is working with young children is thriving, that there is a stable and happy and successful early childhood workforce. For system infrastructure and local partnerships, this one is really getting into what's happening in local communities and then making that connection to the sort of statewide system. So when you think about your local communities, you might think about the sort of collaboration or connection between public schools and CFCEs and family childcare and center-based sort of community-based programs, EEC licensed programs, family resource centers. So like, what does the local community look like, and what supports does the local community need to be able to foster a early childhood system that parents can easily sort of navigate and have access to, that they understand what all the resources are that are available to them. And then moving up to like the state level, what are some of the supports that are needed there? So I think data is one of those potential things, really thinking about data across all of these different parts of early childhood and making sure that we're collecting that and that it's integrated. Making sure that families and providers and just sort of members of the early childhood community have a voice at the table and have a seat at sort of like decision-making tables, whether it's sitting on boards or it's there's a couple examples in other states where they have councils or sort of like local structures that are similar to school boards, where parents and providers are sitting on those structures and informing state policy and informing decisions at in the local level too. And then finally, healthy beginnings, which is really sort of that connection between everything that happens in early childhood and health. So thinking about prenatal, perinatal, postnatal supports, birth, early childhood sort of health and mental health care, screening and assessments, comprehensive services, those transitions between early intervention, early childhood, special education, and then into special education, food insecurity, nutrition, the formula and diaper shortages that we know have been happening, dental and vision care. So pulling in all of those different components as well. So that's just the starting place. And what we're going to do now is add to some of those lists. So what we've done is we've started to generate 2, 3, and 4. Okay. I'm going to start with 1, 2, and 3. I might start with number 2. That seems like it's a common denominator so far. Nola, do you want to add something? Feel free to interrupt me whenever.
I was just wondering, can you show that slide again? Because I don't remember what was 1 or 2.
It's so
the moment.
1. Oh, here, I'll throw it. Actually, Jenna, could you throw it in the chat for me?
I could
Thank you.
also just rate the groups, but
You're good. You're good. Here, Jenna's gonna throw the different working groups into the chat, and then could you also share the website with everyone just so they can see sort of the full early childhood agenda website, which has some more content on it?
Yes, I will do that.
All right. So really, and we can stay on a little bit after 8:30 if everyone wants to, or if you all just want to head out at 8:30, that works fine too. This is really just meant to be sort of an introduction because all of this will be sent out tomorrow or Monday, and you'll have access to the online versions. All right, so what we did during the first activity is we broke out into each of those different groups, and we asked folks just to start listing off what the problems are that they're seeing. So when we think about what we need in order to be able to provide high quality experiences for children, what are some of the challenges that we're seeing? And I'm going to go ahead and share this just so you all can see what it looks like when you're actually in the program. And here we go. So when you click on that link, it'll just ask you to provide your name, and then you'll be logged in to this program here. So when we think about high quality experiences, some of the things that came up were multilingualism. So when we think about language access for families and having access to the services, programs, information that they need in the language that works best for them. Lack of affordable mental health services. I know lack of affordable childcare was another one that came on here. Developmentally appropriate facilities are too expensive. Limited alignment between EEC and home visiting and early intervention. So really thinking about those sort of cross-sector partnerships and how that doesn't always exist. The burden to access comprehensive services is on the families, defined because the services aren't really linked together. There was a lot of comments about sort of this mindset shift. So the importance of early childhood doesn't line up with our priorities as a community, as a nation. Most people who aren't really working in early childhood don't really understand the importance, or I mean, we all know sort of the sort of outside perspective that the early childhood field gathers in terms of a profession. We talked a lot about the workforce and sort of what are the What are the things in terms of professional development, in terms of continuing education that the workforce needs in order to be able to provide high quality services? All right, so I see we have a couple people in here now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if there are any other thoughts on this section, feel free just to throw them on. So the way you add to this is you click on this plus button here, and then you just add your language, and then you click enter, and it'll pop up on the list. All right, I'm just going to preview some of the next steps so you can kind of see what this process will look like over the next 2 weeks. So this was my group, and this is where we got stuck last time, is in the grouping section, where we tried to combine similar ideas and make those into sort of one statement. So we got a few of them done, but we still have a few more to go before the end of the next few weeks. So as an example, this is sort of where we were now. We had many families don't have the knowledge, resources, or tools to support healthy child development. Programs don't have access to enough qualified staff to have the low ratios to support high quality interactions. Lack of time, access, and supports to continued education and leadership opportunities. So really thinking about professional development and higher education. Policy and practice is not grounded in child development and brain science. So we had a lot of comments about play, the role of play, and the ratios being too high, and thinking about someone I think mentioned a comment about sorting children rated to according to date of birth rather than skill level. Continued education doesn't always prepare early childhood professionals for what they need to deliver high quality programs, services, and learning. So really making sure that we have a strong connection between what professional development we're offering and then what the outcome is that we need. The early childhood system doesn't incentivize or support the development of high quality programs and services. So in terms of funding, there's no real incentive to move up in quality. Many early childhood professionals do not make worthy wages, was another comment. So an example of how we've started to combine these into different groups, and this is the final step, which we have not done yet, will be a voting step. So we'll give everyone 5 votes, and we'll say, of all of these things, which 5 would you say are the most essential, the most important, the things that we should prioritize for the next 2 years as problems that we want to solve? So that'll be sort of the overview of the process over the next 2 weeks, and what we'll ask everyone to do in the email that goes out later this week. I'm gonna pause and see if there are any questions. See Leah's comment too. Many providers in the groups that she attends want to see the LEAD portal multilingual options. Yeah, that's a great point. All right, I'm going to go and show one more example just so you all can see. I think we had a lot of 3s that we were interested in too, right? 3, 4, 3. Yeah. So in terms of a thriving early childhood workforce, they got a little further than my group. So again, starting with the brainstorming section where I think they had, yeah, this was Amy's group. She said they had a lot of responses. So aging professionals, high cost of offering benefits, recruiting and retaining an engaged workforce is a challenge. Salary for qualified educators who need to be on par with DESE, compensation for degreed educators. New hires lack qualifications. So lots of the challenges that they're seeing in terms of the workforce. Then they moved into grouping. And then they had the opportunity to actually do some voting. So just so you can see what ultimately this will look like is we asked everyone to sort of distribute their 5 votes. So we can see here that compensation was the one that sort of got the most. So we would use that for right now as sort of a marker for using that as the next step, or considering that as a next step. And then recruitment was another one, and staff wellness was the 3rd. Benefits, and then credentialing and funding are kind of tied. So I think we'd push those ones forward into the next step if that ends up being sort of the final prioritization.
I have a question on that one. One of
Yeah.
the things that comes up much in family childcare is the lack of an assistant pool. I don't really know where that would fit in there, where there are lots and lots of assistants who are licensed, but it's a secret club. Like we have no idea who is available, who is licensed, who might possibly be looking for additional help. And then I think people that might become assistants don't have an opportunity to advertise either, other than maybe a Facebook page or not. So I'm not sure where that might fit in here.
I'm throwing it in right now. It fits perfectly. I think you can kind of approach that from two angles too. So sort of like thinking about the assistant pool more widely in terms of hiring and having an assistant that is employed full-time in your family childcare program, but also in terms of, I think this is applicable for center-based programs too, is like the substitute model, or thinking about like when someone calls off, is there any sort of like substitute pool that we can create both for family childcare assistants, but also for center-based programs too.
Right.
So yeah,
And
Diana, both for sure.
And maybe
Okay.
for regular family childcares, like if one of us had a doctor's appointment
Yeah.
and there was
Yeah.
a certified assistant that could sub for 2 hours, so we don't have to close.
Yeah,
So also one of those comments would be, many of us can't afford a full-time assistant, but I could use someone on Tuesday and Wednesday. Jennifer could use someone on Monday and Thursday. Gina could use someone on Friday, and there they get a full-time job, even though we can't afford that. That would be a big benefit also.
so like
Almost like
splitting
they
time
do with a
between
nanny
multiple.
share.
Yeah, I like that a
Yeah.
lot. It's like there's no option to split time between multiple programs.
No, EEC doesn't like allow it.
Yeah.
I
Those are
don't know if
great
they-
suggestions or great ideas.
Yeah, I don't even know if they allow it. It would just, I mean, it's really hard to express the difficulty. Like if your kid has a doctor's appointment, you just can't go. Like there's just no way to go. So if there was one person that could show up every other week on Tuesdays, that would make all the difference in the world. Sorry, I didn't realize I was not on there.
No, you're good.
But those tiny little things make a huge difference, but for some reason, there's just no communication. I know I have an assistant. I love her. I'm not putting her name out there because it scares me to think someone else might offer her $25 an hour. But I think if there was just an opportunity for people to have an option, or even just to be obligated to hire them one day a week, every other week, and someone else can do that. There's no way any of us can talk to anybody else and say, hey, I can do this, you can do that, we can hire this person.
Yeah, those are great suggestions to add to the list. I think that's like exactly the type of feedback that we're looking for. The only other thing that I just wanted to show really quickly and then share the link for is Basecamp. So this is optional. The information is going to be shared in other ways as well, but I think the most information that you'll find related to the agenda will be in this. And what we're really trying to do here is to eliminate your need to like scroll through your email and find a bunch of links or find like 6 email chains that are about 10 things. So we're really trying to have this be like a one-stop shop where you can just click on this page and you'll see everything related to the agenda that you are looking for. So I will go ahead and post that link in the chat as well, but just to give an overview of what this looks like, there's sort of 4 different features for Basecamp. So there's a message board. Right now, we're sort of just using it to get started. So we had a couple welcome announcements and we've had some questions that have been posted there. And we're using this to sort of like continue the community building that we've done. So as an example, Jenna posted the question that we used as like an icebreaker for the first meeting. So what's your favorite place to be alone in Massachusetts? As we continue and get going, especially I think once we get towards the solutions part of all of this, I think the message board will be a huge resource because we know that, an hour and a half is not a lot of time when it comes to figuring out what a solution is. And so a lot of those conversations are going to start in one place and then they're going to move to the message board, and we'll have a lot of opportunities for feedback and for comment on the message board.
Marissa, I have a question concerning this.
Yeah.
Can we use this as our advocacy 101 place to go to?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely. The other major one, and I know that this has been such a challenge. And so we're working for sure to make it clearer in general, but just wanted to share this as a resource. So the schedule for everything is on Basecamp. So you can see the 9:30 call at night. You can see all the different working group meetings, their times. When you click on them, it has the Zoom links there already. So it sort of gives you everything that you need to know there. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight on this part is, so because this is just a technology fluke, but because the meetings are not all at the same date or same day, same time, we couldn't create a Google sort of like import into your calendar link. Basecamp does have that though. So when you are in Basecamp, you can click this little link at the top here where it says add the schedule to your Google Calendar in your Outlook. And that allows you to import everything into your calendar so that you'll see sort of when the meeting times are and all the Zoom information. And then documents and files. So again, just kind of kicking it off now, but what we want this to be eventually is as we start to transition from problems to solutions, then we can really rely on partners to share what you all are doing. So if we know that there's a group of family childcare providers who are meeting with the EEC and they're working on a solution, or there's a group of the CFCs that are providing feedback on something, or a state department is working on something and they're looking for feedback, or there's a coalition or an organization who's really looking to file legislation, that we can start to pull in all of those different resources and post them here as things to look at, as things to consider as we move towards sort of the solutions phase of all of this, and resources. So thinking about research and documents that have already been written, all those good things. And the last one is the to-dos. So this is where you're going to find the activities like what we just did. So I'll use last week as the example. The first to-do was to encourage others to join and participate in the agenda setting process. So everyone will have access to this. You'll be able to see the to-dos. We're encouraging that. And then we have a description down here with what we're asking for and how to sign up. Yeah, Leah, go ahead.
I just have one question. How many times a week are we expected to attend the 9:30 meeting, whether it's in the morning or in the evenings?
In terms of the early childhood agenda,
Yes.
we're doing that. It's going to be Mondays and Thursdays every other week, I believe, is the full schedule. And not expected at all. So this is really meant, again, this is meant to be like, if you want to come and have a space where we can be together and sort of talk through some of these things, we wanted to offer it. But we know that sort of, I mean, people are kind of used to using computers and working virtually now at this point. So if you want to just engage virtually, you can totally do that too.
Thank you.
No problem. Whoops. And then the other one I wanted to show is the activity from last week. So this is where we were starting to draft the vision, the values, the guidelines for setting the agenda. So this is the sort of structure that we're going to use for the activity that you just saw and future activities that we do in the future. So we'll give instructions, we'll share the links, we'll describe sort of what we're trying to do here, and then we'll post it so that everyone can take a look at this and you can continue to engage offline, sort of at a time that works best for you. So that is Basecamp. And I'm going to go ahead and post that in the chat right now. I just wanted to add too, it's totally free. You have like a free account through us. So there's not a huge sign up process either. It's really just your email and your name, and then it gets you into the account. All right, I wanted to just do a quick check. So thumbs up if you're feeling pretty okay about how the activities are going to structure, thumbs sort of sideways if you want some more information, and thumbs down if you don't quite understand yet. Thanks, Valen. Love the virtual thumbs up. All right, any questions, comments, thoughts?
So the working group during the day, is it taking place in lieu of the 9:30 call?
It's basically like a menu of options, I guess is the best way I can describe it. So this morning during the 9:30 call, we basically did the same activity that I just did with you all right now. we did that same activity during the working group too. So we're just trying to like provide as many different options as possible so that people can kind of plug in when that makes the most sense for them. And especially in terms of people who are working with kids, we know that the 10:30 or the 10 o'clock in the morning slot just does not work. So evening time slot, if this does work better, is for sure an option. And otherwise the base camp and like online option is always going to be there.
The Thursday night call and whatever happens during the week will kind of mirror each other, like it will be,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. So the way I matched it up when I said like the 9:30 call will be every other week, it'll coincide with when we're doing the working groups too. So we can do the same activities each time as well.
Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you, Jen. All right, well, if there are no more questions. I would just say, make sure that you are signed up for the early childhood agenda, and that you are signed up for the 9:30 call. If you want to keep coming to this one, we'll make sure to share it in the early childhood agenda too, but just so you're getting both of the content. Diana, do you have a question too? No? No worries. And then I will post both of those in the chat as well too. And then base camp for sure. That'll, I think, be the easiest way for you to get all the information that you do need. And then we will be in touch with the next steps and sort of how to continue working and engaging over the next 2 weeks before the next meeting.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Have a good flight
You too.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.